Welcome along, course preview. This is the Two Lake Loop. You can see the little map there, interactive maps, just done the north loop. It comes back down to the second loop. So you can see you go in and out of those headlands around the coast, which means there's changes of wind direction as you go round. You can see a typical example as we home in. Now then, you start off by going up to the North Lake on this. So we're going to go through the starting line here. Now, remember the little map you saw? We are going to go in and out of those little coves. And if you look in the top right hand corner of the graphics, you can see there's a wind direction arrow pointing diagonally sort of downwards towards the bottom left hand corner of your screen. This is an easterly wind. We're heading northwards at the moment along the east coast of the island. Now as we go in and out of these coves, you'll see the arrow moving. So sometimes we're going to get the benefit of a tailwind, and on the way back largely a headwind, and that's because we head northwards up the east coast. So although it's slightly behind the rider now, you're going to go in and out of these coves and it's going to change, but largely you're getting an easterly wind hitting you along the on the right hand side, I would suppose. However, we go then sort of take a turn and start heading westwards along the north coast of the island, if you like, where we get a tailwind. We then head inland. Now that's where the hills start, and if you look in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, you can see the gradients there. And the gradients, well basically there's several climbs to go, and they start hitting about a quarter way into the race. So we go around the coast and it's flat, but you need to be watching the wind direction to see whether you're getting the benefit or not. And obviously during a race you would typically like to sit in behind somebody if there's a headwind, and maybe attack if there's a tailwind. It's up to you. You have your own styles. Now, the other thing to remember is these little bumps. About a quarter of the way into the race, we turn inland, and whenever you turn inland off one of these Indy Velo courses, you're going to go up a hill. And obviously we're down here at sea level, but the island itself rises out the sea. So the moment you turn inland, you're going to go up a hill. Now, the first trek up to the North Lake, which we're going to do. Now it's longer from the start line to the North Lake than when we come back. It's sort of a long way back to the start line. The from the start line to the South Lake and the little loop and back is the shorter section. So it's quite a long bit of coastline along the first section, then up in those little bumps as we go around the North Lake, and then back for a long straight race back through the start line, and then back up to that little loop of the South Lake. Now the hills on the South Lake probably aren't quite as significant as the ones on the first lake, because the first lake is the first time we get the hills, and those little bumps are probably where, if there's a peloton that survived all this flat road along the coastline, it's going to start splintering at that point when it hits those hills. So with a wind speed of 4 kph here, my reckoning is that whatever the wind kph is will roughly, if it's behind you, add something like that onto your speed, and if it's against you, subdue your speed by about that much. So you can see I'm not actually putting a lot of watts in here, doing 37 kph with a 4 kph wind sort of roughly behind me. That might be 33 if there was no wind. And of course you know, we're all different on this, and I'm not putting a lot of watts in compared to what somebody would put into a race, so you can do your own calculations. I'm not going to do them for you. Now again, we've got quite a long way along this flat zone. You can see we're 2 kilometres in. You've got to get to 4 or 5 kilometres, and you can see those little lumps at the bottom. If you look where the word loop is and just look underneath there, you'll see that we start that's where we are at the moment. We're about halfway to where the bumps start. They're underneath the word course. Now there's a couple of small ones. There's a big significant one in the middle, and then 3 after that. Now it's a significant one in the middle that I think is going to cause all the damage. People may attack on the little bumps before that, but it's that big one in the middle where I think you're going to get the significant splits, and the ones that really make a difference to any race outcome. If you look further down the course, when we come out of that North Lake zone, we've got that long flat coming back the opposite direction to where we're riding at the moment, along this same coastline, back to the start line. There are 2 lumps on the way back. Now they're not particularly hard, but one of them gets a little bit steep just at the top, and again it depends how the race has panned out as to whether the attacks will happen there. My own experience is I would say that some of the hills you feel them a little bit more than other platforms on Indy Velo. It's a little bit more realistic. Speaking to some of the riders in some of the races I've run, their feeling is that these hills are a bit more realistic, and you don't get away with the hills on the way in the way that you might on other platforms. You can make your own judgments on that. It's not fact. That's opinion, hearsay, whatever you want to say. But certainly going up the hills, I feel it. Now the races that I run at the moment are not set so you get the full effect. So you can have your own settings to suit your own style. So we're fairly flexible on that. I think one of the test rides I did put the full effect, and it devastated one or two people. So I took pity and switched that option off. So basically, whatever you're used to riding on Indy Velo, that's what it'll feel like when you do these races. As I say, no real gradient along the coastline. You do occasionally get little 1% rises where the road slips away. I mean, you would expect normally to be at sea level, it would not change gradient, but the road itself might rise, a metre or so away from the coast, and you will get, or from the sea level, should I say. There we are. There's a 1% just popped up there as the road is slightly higher than the sea momentarily, and that will go back to zero fairly soon. Remember, of course, the wind, apart from in that top right hand corner where it tells you the wind direction and the speed of the wind, you also get these little wisps and lines that come across the road showing you the wind direction. Just so it's, I suppose, in your vision. It saves you kind of looking for data all the time. Now, if you're not used to the Indy Velo screens, there's there's probably three data boxes you should be looking at. The top right hand one we've already discussed. It's got the gradient in there, it's got the wind direction, it's got a little map, the sort of the bit under the 4 kph there shows you that we're about to go around a bend. We're going around one of these headlands, so that's basically the map, and you can see it twists and turns in and out these little inlets on the coast. Just under that there's a bar that shows you how far you've gone out of the race with the distance to the finish, which is 16.2 kilometres at the moment. You get used to screens. I think if you ride a platform enough, you know where to look. The little green bar doesn't tell you how much you've done, but if you look over in the top left hand corner, you can see that we've done 4.4 kilometres. Now this is a 20.4 kilometre course, and so therefore 4.4, we're just coming into the bit where we're going to go inland, and you can see the gradient up there in the top right is now 3%. Next to that is a little box that says draft. That's showing no draft effect at all, because basically there's no one in front of me. I'm riding solo, so the draft effect there not showing up, and it's not really going to show up because I didn't particularly sit on anybody's wheel, which is ironic because I went to I did this yesterday or the day before the recording you're watching, and unfortunately it was a dropout. And in that one, I did actually sit on somebody's wheel to demonstrate what it was like, but didn't happen in this one. Didn't really sort of find a bot that was doing the same speed as me and using it. So there we are. We're over that first little bump. Nothing too significant. We're in that -3% gradient. See the little wisp of the wind coming across there, showing you where it is. Now you get these little directions. We're going to go to the North Lake Sprint rather than the North Lake Start. As you can see there, it's going to take us right. Because this is a set route, that's what we're going to do. I'm riding this not in race conditions, so it's offering me the choice if I want to change direction and go on a different route. So I'm just riding as a casual rider rather than in a race. Obviously you don't get those options during the real race. So here we are, 4%. We're on the second of the bumps, slowing down significantly, but it's not very big. There's nothing too significant there, and you can see that it levels out fairly quickly to 0%. So now we get the downhill, and the big climb is coming up. You can see another one of those little wind wisps coming through. Big climb coming up. Nice descent. Enjoy it while it lasts, because I think the first of the telling climbs is coming up any moment now. -3%. I think there's a descent near the end which is particularly fast, but most of these ones inland, not particularly fast descents. so you might want to pedal while you're descending if you want to get some benefit. I'm going to hit 50 kph quite easily on under 200 watts there, but I'm not I don't have a fast cadence. I wouldn't look at my riding here as typical of what you might do in the race. Most racers will have better cadences than I do. So here we are, still minus 3%. It goes on for quite a while. But now look at that. As soon as we hit the big bump in the middle, straight away 6%. Look at the speed drop, 23 kph. Fighting hard to maintain that. And the wattage going up and the speed going down. And that's going to happen to everybody. We have seen the effect of these hills in these races. Some people lose out a little bit on the hills, but make it up on descents and flats. Sometimes people fall out, and maybe you'll regroup at the end. But look at this, 7%. It's quite tough as we climb this significant bump. 8% now. You can see the arch at the end, the red and white sort of a checkered thing. It looks a bit like a polka dot jersey, so you know it's the top of the climb. Still hitting this 8%, and speed now hitting me hard, dropping down to 12 kph at 270 watts. Obviously these figures will be different for the fast racers at the front. Eases off a little bit at 6% there. Still putting out more watts than I have been for the rest of the ride. Dropping down to 4% as we get near the top. 1% just before the finish. And this is where you need to start revving up, because you're going to hit that big descent. Somebody will attack off the bottom. However, it does roll on with a bit of false flat for 1%, as you can see here, and that's it. Now we're over and the descent starts. -7, -9%. I said that most of these descents aren't too steep. That one didn't last long at that percentage, so we're back down to -1, -2 now, because we're only at the lakeside. This goes down into this wonderful gorge here. I thought this was quite stunning. I'm sure as the years go by, the scenery on Velo is going to get better and better. This preview's been done very much in the early beta test days, and I think the scenery and the way it all operates, it's such a smooth platform. It looks great already, and there's more to come, I'm sure. Anyway, no sooner are we out of that than we hit these other little subsidiary bumps before we get out of it. Look at that, 10%. There's not much of a bump there, you don't see it on the map, but that 9% really hitting hard, nearly getting caught by that bot there, but just holding it and putting out some watts to keep the speed. You can see where the top is, it's not very far away. Eases off to 5%, and we can start raising the speed again as we get over into the second descent. As I say, there's 3 of these bumps after the big climb, and so with those percentages, you are, as I say, going to get slowed down very much, and it depends, how you cope with them as to what happens next and who you're with and the company you're in. They're not very long, so if you don't lose a lot of ground, you may well catch up. You can ignore these arches. These are the arches for other start points for other courses and configurations even. You can see one of the start lines on the right there, in that little cul-de-sac there. The black arches are start lines, green ones finishing lines, and the red ones top of a climb. So here we are, we're in the second of the 3, 4%. It's slowing me down obviously, and you can see it's not very far to the top, so if you lose a couple of meters, that's fine. But if you feel that the people around you are struggling a little bit, this might be a very good place to attack. However, you've got to remember that we're not even halfway through the race yet, so going off solo is probably not an option. As we peel off, still on this North Lake route, 7.7 kilometres done, and just about to hit the last of the small climbs before we go back along the coast. Now, as I said before, we had that easterly wind, as you know, and as we go in and out of the coves, it will change direction effectively from our perspective. But the first section, we are going along the north coast of the island in an easterly direction, so we are going to be hitting it when we hit the coast. Certainly for the early stages of the return journey to the finishing line, before that smaller loop around the South Lake in the latter stages of the race. Remember those 2 big bumps still to come. It's very flat now to the end, bit of downhill and then flat. I say we're going over this, still going over the last bump, but once we're over this little rise, which isn't significant, you can see 3%, and nothing too daunting on the horizon as we can see ahead. Still at 3%. You can see really where it's going to sort of like top out, already dropping to 2%, 1%, and over the top, and then into the descent down to the coastline. As I say, first section of the hill's all done now. It's going to be a flat race back to those last two lumps, but the wind is going to be the factor to watch now, certainly in this demo. I'm not sure, to be honest, whether the wind direction will be different when you're racing it on another day. I'm not sure how that's configured, but either way, if you're racing on Indy Velo, wind direction is a factor. And if you're in a race, and here we are back at the coast, so we're going to do a right turn and head southwards, and the wind coming from the, well, I say southwards, it's sorry, I do beg your pardon, this is obviously eastwards to start with, because we're going across the north of the island, and then we'll swing southwards. So already you can see here, hitting that headwind, look at the arrows pointing in exactly towards the direction I'm riding in. This is, let's say, the wattage compared to what I've been riding is quite high without getting a high speed, or certainly having to push to fight this headwind at this point, taking a little bit of extra effort. And this is the story of this return journey. You get in and out of the wind. There'll be little sections where the wind is not really affecting you because you've gone into one of the, or around a headland, or into an inlet or something like that. But consistently, the first half of the return journey is going to see a lot of headwind, certainly on this ride. As I say, if the wind direction when you're riding at a different day is different, then just watch out for it, and you'll have to tailor all these comments to suit the situation you find yourself in. But I think generally, as I was saying, on Indy Velo, when you are racing, look at wind direction. These are the times you really, like now I'm going into the headwind, this is the time you really want to sit at the back of the peloton, let somebody else do the work, if you can, if they'll let you, and choose your moments to go on the front. So as much as this first half of this return journey back to the start line might look easy because it's a long flat section, look in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, you can see where the arrow pointing down is. That's where we are. There's a long flat section before we hit those last two bumps inside the last 4 or so kilometres of the race. The finish, of course, is, if you look, you've got that steep downhill right at the end. I'm looking for, along the profile right in the bottom right hand corner. You've got that steep descent which takes you down to the coast, and then the flat section along the coast. With any luck, you won't have too many wind problems. If the wind's the same as today anyway, the wind isn't too bad on that last section, and you go into it with a very fast descent. That could be some really fast blast racing if the wind direction is, as I say, similar as it is today. I don't honestly know how the wind is configured. I can only deal with what's in front of me, and I would suspect, as you've seen, I've got those little wind wisps go along on the right hand side. I think I would like to think that it's fairly random and you get it different directions, different days, so that you can't racers and riders can't really plot it too easily, knowing what's coming at exactly every bend. I think it'd be more interesting if it was variable. Whether it is or not, I haven't ridden this course enough times to know. I have ridden this course twice though, and it was, the wind direction was the same both times, so maybe it is stuck. Just keep your eye on it when you're racing. You can see here the arrow, as we go around that bend, the arrow at the top right hand corner changes a lot. 0%, we're not hitting any of those 1%, oh yes we are, there's one now. We go slightly away from the beach and it goes up 1% momentarily. It won't last long, we'll be back down to 0, there we are, as we head out of the little inlet towards the open sea. So I'm not particularly riding fast at the moment, and certainly I was of the view that I'm not going to actually I suppose hurt myself against the headwind, and sort of kind of sat that back there under 200 watts at the moment. Still hitting 35 at the moment though, so it's not too bad for the wattage that's being put out, but as I say, that's a slight -1 gradient at that point. So you can see the arrow there, we're still a long way away from the from those 2 bumps at the end. We're only we've got 9.5 kilometres to go, so we're over halfway in the race, and you can see much more of it's in the northern half of the island than the southern half, and this is really, I suppose, where the race is all about. I think if the peloton in a race has formed itself by now, then obviously it will stick together on this section, I would suspect, and it will be all about those last 2 climbs. Now, as I say, there are stings in the tails. One of them is a little bit steep at the top, and then that final descent is very, very fast. So if you're a good descender, or you can pedal hard down that descent, you might have an advantage going into the final section. Again, wind factor possibly there on that last section. I don't think it will be a big factor if it's in the same direction as it is today, though, because I think it usually works to your advantage. As I say, the 2 times I've ridden it, it's been the same wind direction as it is. So 11.5 kilometres done. There's not too much you can say about the scenery now, because we've done this once before. It's the second half of it. I'm quite interested as well the way the weather changes. This particular race I was doing in the evening and UK time, and I noticed you get the long shadows, and I suspect, and I'm certain that other platforms do this as well, that they actually make the weather sort of kind of fit the time zone you're doing it in. When I did this course the day before, and the recording didn't quite come out, there was a sort of power dropout, and it cut the recording. It actually snowed on one part of it. I did it much later at night, so I don't know if quite why it decided that snow would be in point, but no snow here tonight, as we see those winds wisps going across from left to right, which coincides with the arrow in that right hand box at the top. As I say, in that right hand box you can see the line of the road, and it twists and turns around this coastline, as I said, so it keeps changing the wind direction, no consistency, because of the lie of the land and the way the shore is. So we go 12.3 kilometres done, 8 to go, so with quite a way round this now, 3/5 of the way round the course, and to say those, I think when I was doing it as well, I was looking at that arrow, wondering when that climb's going to come at the end. We see a peloton go in the other direction, and it seemed to take a long time to me to get to those lumps. So I was very much, I suppose, riding solo without a lot of people around me, and not so much to concentrate on, if you like. So it seemed to me that it was taking a very long time to get to those last lumps. So I wasn't particularly looking forward to them, but I kind of wanted to get there just to see how they felt, despite the fact that I'd done them the night before. I just wanted to kind of test them out and get a feel for them, partly for this preview, of course. So we go through another one of the arches. We're actually now at the point we started at. You can see this arch has got some illuminations hanging from the screen. It says 0 laps done. If they're not lit up, they're not really arches for your course. Where they're lit up like that, they're arches for your course. That one's lit up, so we know that's where we started. So we've done the north section of the race, and it's just now the trepidation, anticipation, and looking forward to those climbs, or maybe not. As I say, I think they're going to be very significant in the race. If there's a group left here, I think everybody will be looking at each other, wondering what's going to happen on those 2 climbs. First one's slightly smaller. As I say, there are points where it suddenly gets steeper. They're not particularly steep, but there are critical points, and I think it's well worth watching a preview or riding it yourself beforehand, so you know exactly where those points are, because you can anticipate what other riders might do and or how you might attack. And of course, if your feeling is that you might get attacked and not quite be able to cope, it might well be worth getting a little bit of a gap on people before a steep section, knowing that you'll get caught on the steep section rather than getting dropped. It's all up to you. You know your own abilities, your strong points, your weak points, and you probably know a little bit about the riders around you, and certainly the more of these races you do, you'll get to know the community. So obviously what happens is we're going to do a right turn inland. I say a right turn, it's almost straight on because it's off one of the alcoves, the little inlets. It's not that one, or this other one coming up, which is effectively the same junction, if you like, the same route inland. So it's not that one. What happens, we will actually go into one of the inlets, and we'll be heading towards inland anyway, and instead of following the inlet round, we carry on up the hill. So you'll be on the coastline, and if it were a right turn that were 90 degrees, it'd be obvious where it's sort of starting, but if you're not concentrating on the landscape, you might not see this one coming quite as easily as you might on a more significant sort of right hand turn to go inland. So as I say, it's getting ever closer. We're very nearly there. We've got 6 kilometres to go, and I think it's about I can't remember exactly how many kilometres it is to go when we get to the climb, but it's coming up fairly soon. I think it's around the 5 kilometre mark. I might have said 4 earlier, but it was I think it's 5 point something kilometres to go. So what do you do on the climbs? Well, I think it's going to be a judgment of your own capabilities, looking around you, seeing who's there, how you feel on the day, how leggy will you be. I think if you're still in the peloton, you've probably got a reasonable chance of staying in it. These aren't horrible climbs, but under racing conditions, obviously they're harder. Now, we do get the warning here that we're going to go towards the South Lake, and it signifies a right turn, and it looks as if it's a 90 degree right hand bend. But as I said before, we go into this inlet, and in fact the road goes off to the left, but we're going to carry on straight on. So there is no turn, so don't get caught out. If you stay on the road, you go left there. So it looks like you're going straight on, but you're actually taking this right hander inland, and already 12%. Look at that, straight into it. 12%. You're going to get hit hard if you're not concentrating, because you're looking for a turn and it actually goes straight on. You could get very caught out there. So make sure you're in the right gear as you go up. I probably wasn't. It hit me hard. Okay, it doesn't last long. We're down to 6-7%, but if you've lost momentum already and somebody else is spinning nicely up that hill because they chose the right gear, you could see them disappearing into the distance. So I think that is a significant junction. It's not, in theory it's a right turn because you're coming off the course, but in fact it's straight on. If you're not focusing, you won't see it coming, and that 12% in the wrong gear is going to affect your race. So these are the reasons we do the previews, so that you can see what's coming. 6%, I mean, even by Velo's standards, 6% can really affect your pedalling, I think, and the gear selection is going to be critical. It does begin to ease off here though. We're down to 1%. Not quite at the top of the climb, but it's only 1 or 2% at this point. 3% now. You can see the horizon, so there's not far to go, and if you look down at the arrow at the bottom, you can see we're effectively nearing the top of this climb. So the worst is over, but as I say, the worst is at the bottom. In the wrong gear, you could lose a lot of ground there. Coming up to one of those turns, again, as I say, you're not going to get the choice in the race because it's predetermined. I'm only getting the choice because I'm doing a free ride here, albeit that I have selected the course. If you're not in a race, you do get the choices. So 2%, we're still a bit on the climb, but you can see it now. We're just coming to the end. Again, this is one of those where actually you're going to go straight on rather than doing a turn. So I suppose it's a bit more of a turn, isn't it? Because by the time you're on that curve. Now then, -7%, so you're going to get good speed down this one. -11%, so you are rewarded. -15%, you can get some good speed out here. I'm not even trying, and I got 64 kph just then, with very little wattage going out. I am pedalling, probably don't need to, I don't know. In a race, I would probably recommend that you do. We're down to 4.7 kilometres to go. There's the lake. Again, we can see one of those finishing lines, but it's not ours. There's nothing lit up in the screen. This is the lake, one of the races that starts at the lake. That's what that's all about. Remember, we've got to go back down to the coast. Now, mountain lakes are set in, they tend to be surrounded by rising hills. That's why there's a lake there. If the land was lower, obviously it would just carry on flowing down like a river. So you can see we've got this second lump to get out of this lake. The little cauldron that is the lake here. We've got to get out the other side of it. So we've got this last climb to go. Now we're going to do one more right hand turn. This is one where it's a little bit steep at the top. It's very gentle, and it feels Feels great till you get to that last little bit and suddenly the gradient goes up. So again, if you're aware of that, so close to the finish as we do the right turn, if you are aware of that, then I think you're going to have an advantage. Again, gear selection, maybe an attack, could get you over that lump before anybody else, and with very little of the race left and that steep descent, you could be away and winning. Now, if everybody else has watched this preview or practiced on the course, you're not going to be the only one that knows that. But being aware of it, being forewarned, forearmed, and hopefully to your advantage, or at least you can mitigate any disadvantages that you might have. So we're still by the lakeside. We're into the last few kilometres. We're under 4 kilometres now. 3.7 to go. 16.7 done. Minus 1% here. Still at the lakeside. Getting to the bottom of that climb though. It's going to change any minute now as we come out of the little dip, the pot you like, that the lake's in, where the lake's formed inside the hills. We are going to be rising out of that very, very soon. 0% here. We can see another one of those green arches coming up. It's not ours, remember. It's not lit up, it's not yours. So don't get excited about finishing lines accidentally as we hit 3.3 kilometres to go. Now there's a 1% climb. We're still near the lake here. We're not quite on the climb proper, just the 1%. As I say, it starts gently, but there is a little kick at the top. 1% gently rising. At the bottom of the hill now, we're leaving the lake, so we've got to get over the lip of the lake and then back down to the coastline. Through that finishing line, as you can see, nothing lit up in the monitor that's dangling from it as we go to 3.1 kilometres, gradient up to 2%. It's kind of 2-3% for most of this climb, and you can be lulled into thinking that'll be it, because if you look at the graphic at the bottom right hand corner, you can see where the arrow is. You can see we're on that climb at 2%. You can't see a big horizon in front of you, so you think, well, there's clearly not some big mountain that we suddenly got to go up that you can see looming up ahead. But 2.2%, it rises to around 6 at the top, I think. We'll see in a moment. I could be wrong. And here it goes, 4% as we start getting closer to the top, back down to 3. This is fairly standard. And when I said there's no big horizon in front of you, that's because if you're looking along the road, you aren't really taking into account turns and things like that. You can see though that this road is higher than the water level of the lake, so we're already sort of climbing out of the pot that is the lake. We've got this left-hand turn for the east coast, which tells us that we're going to go to the east coast. You can see on the road map in the top right-hand corner how that works. We're going to go sweeping down towards the coast from that left-hand turn. As you can see, it sort of zigzags a little bit down to the coast road. Here we go, 6%. As I said, we're getting near the top. You can see that we're near the top. The arrow at the bottom tells you near the top. The horizon tells you we're near the top. Suddenly it's 6 and 5%. And if somebody has got plenty in the tank there and can attack, they are going to be first onto the descent, which is going to be a big advantage. And without any more lumps to come, if they can hold that advantage, then all good for them really. Down at 3% near the top, you can see we're not quite at the top though. You can the road's going to sort of kind of spin round before it goes downwards. We swing around on this arc to the left. You can sort of see where it hits the peak of the climb. Still 1% to go as we go around this bend, but as soon as we hit the top of the bend, it starts going down. You can see now where it's going to go down, but there's a little kick to 2%. It's not a lot. Back to 1%, but that's where the descent starts. You can see it now, -1. You need to sort of kick on here, and if somebody's got the better of you on that 6% climb, you need to probably push it down here. Now you can see the descent actually gets quite fast on this one, -3% at the moment. We're at the sort of peak of it, but look at the arrow at the bottom of the screen. You can see that it's a steep descent, and any moment now we're going to get a very big rise in the percentage downhill. -7% there now already, -6%. You can see the coastline, -7%. This is where you really get the speed up, -10% just before we hit the coast, -11 it hits. And with that speed coming on here now with not a lot of effort, hitting over 60 kph, It will be faster in real races. We're back onto this flat section, and you can see, if anything, I've got a slight tailwind at the moment, and given the momentum off the descent hitting 11% just before the beach, this could be a very fast section of any race. Again, be aware of this. You are going to go in and out the inlets, obviously, so the wind direction is going to change. You can see it's coming from the side now, but as we swing around to the left here, the wind will come behind me. You can see that little wisp, that white line going across the road, giving you an indication of what the wind's doing. Here we are, momentarily getting a bit of a tailwind there, as you can see, but it's going to swing around the inlet and work against me on the way out, obviously. But it's, it swings and roundabouts. It depends. If you're solo, you're going to have to treat this like a time trial. If you're in a group, maybe sitting on somebody's wheel is the way to do this last section. Be a bit cat and mouse. Again, look up at the road map. At the top right hand corner, you can see it just goes in and out as it goes around these headlands and inlets on the coastline. We're inside the last kilometre, 900 metres to go, and as I say, you can see by the map, the wind direction is going to change several times. We're going to go into the wind as we go round this particular inlet. As you can see where the inlet ends there, the beach going round in a U shape, and we're going to be back going into the wind for a moment. So again, if you're in a group, it might not be best to go on the front. It might be best to sit on a wheel if you can. If you're chasing, you're going to have to chase. There's not a lot you can do about it, is there? So here we go. We go into a headwind momentarily. It won't last long because we're going to swing round and take advantage of the curves. Last 600 metres to go, 400 metres to go, sorry. As we get round this headland, we begin to see the finishing line quite late actually on this course. So it's not something you're going to have to work out visually. I think you're going to have to look at the distance to go, which is in the top right hand corner by the checkered flag in that box, bottom right hand corner of the top right hand corner box. You still can't see the finishing line with 200 metres to go, but as we come round here, one would like to think it's going to come into view. Quite a big sweeping bend. There it is, 100 metres to go, and that's the first time you really see it. Put in some last minute effort, use up whatever you've got left in the tank. The wind's not working against me there, and you can see lit up, one lap done. I'm not going to do another one. That's all you need for the preview, and that is it. Good luck if you go and race it. See you soon.